Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Happy October 1st. It is the best time of the year and I'm so excited about today's video. We're going to be doing my third annual 31 Days of Horror. If you are new to my channel, basically I picked 31 movies to watch in the month of October. I have done 2 other ones before, so if I don't mention a certain movie on this list, probably in one of those other lists. I look forward to filming this video every single year. It is seriously my favorite video to film now, and it's not as easy as you guys think. This is my third one now, so this is 93 movies that I've had to pick for 31 Days of Horror, and even though all I watch is horror movies, it's still really hard to pick the movies for this list. Even this one, I was like, I don't know if I have 31 movies to put on this list. So I ended up putting together 31 movies and I have the list right here. I did put this list over on my TREENZ Instagram, so if you guys want the actual list, you can get it there. And I've also put it on my Letterboxd as well, so I'll link that down below. And if you guys don't follow me on Instagram, today is the 1st, so I did post my first TREENZ look over there and I'm so excited about it. A little hint is the shirt that I'm wearing right now. So I am wearing my Talk to Me shirt and I'm very excited. These videos are usually pretty long. There are 31 movies that I gotta get through, so grab a snack, grab a coffee. I have my coffee right here. So let's go ahead and get into it. I don't usually curate these lists in any particular order. It's pretty much just here's 31 movies. You can pick one and watch one for every single day in the month of October. But it actually curate the first and the last movie on this list, and you can kind of switch them up by either watching them on the first or the last day of October, obviously on Halloween. So 1 you could definitely watch on the first day of October, and 31 you can watch on Halloween, or you can switch them and watch that one on the first and vice versa, you know? So the first one I'm going to start off with, which I feel like is a great Halloween movie, but it's also like the movie that I now want to watch on the 1st of October to like just get me in the spirit, is right up there with like Trick or Treat. And if you like Trick or Treat, that obviously you guys know it's my favorite Halloween movie of all time. I feel like you guys will like this movie. It came out this year. This is Cobweb. This movie is so good. It like exceeded my expectations by like a million. I didn't really think much of it. I will say do not watch the trailer for it, because I watched the trailer, I went in blind, and once I watched the trailer afterwards, I was like, they showed way too much in the trailer. So just go in blind. Trust me, it is so good. The synopsis is that it says an 8-year-old boy is plagued by a mysterious constant tapping from inside his bedroom wall, one that his parents insist is all on his imagination, and that's all you really need to know. Kaplan is in this movie and it is so good, and the little boy in the movie is so great as well. Seriously, such a perfect movie to start the Halloween season, but I also think this is a perfect movie to watch on Halloween as well. So definitely say that this is like a perfect Halloween movie. It's definitely creepy. There were some jump scares that I jumped with, and I think it is amazing. So that is number 1. The next movie I'm sure will not be a surprise, especially after the shirt that I'm wearing right now, and that is Talk to Me. This is an amazing horror movie. I remember hearing about this movie earlier this year and it was shown at the festivals and everything, and I had been looking forward to it ever since then. Sure enough, when I saw it, I knew that this would be an instant classic. It is absolutely fantastic. A group of friends discover how to conjure spirits using an embalmed hand. They become hooked on the new thrill until one of them goes too far and unleashing terrifying supernatural forces. There was a lot of hype around it, and I think that the hype is very well deserved. It is an amazing horror movie. I did say I saw like so many like reviews saying that this was just as scary, if not scarier, than Hereditary, and I don't agree with that at all. I don't think that this is scarier than Hereditary. And you guys know Hereditary is my favorite horror movie of all time, so I don't think it's as scary as Hereditary. There are some scary moments, but I definitely think that Hereditary is more disturbing and scarier in my personal opinion, but this is definitely right up there. This is an A24 horror movie. You know exactly what you're gonna get when you watch an A24 movie, so yes, but it is absolutely fantastic. I definitely recommend. The next movie, and I will just say I'm still riding the high off of seeing this from last night. I knew I was gonna love this, but I did not think I was gonna love it this much, and that is Saw X. You guys know, if you've watched any of my previous 31 Days of Horror, Saw is my absolute favorite horror franchise of all time. I have been there since day 1. 2004, I was 8 or 9 years old, I think, and I have been obsessed with Saw ever since. I've seen every single one that I could in theaters, and obviously there hasn't been a new Saw movie in a long time, and I was very nervous when I was going into this last night. I was like, I don't know if it's gonna be good, if it's gonna be bad, and when I tell you this is the best Saw movie in the entire franchise, and that is saying a lot. I never in a million years would have thought that a new Saw movie would take over the spot that I have Saw 3 in, which I think Saw 3 is my favorite and the best one out of all of them until now. Saw X is absolutely fantastic. My boyfriend, he's very harsh, like a very harsh movie critic, and when we both left the theater last night, he was like, I don't give 5s very often, and he does not. Very, very, very rare if I see my boyfriend give a 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd to a horror movie. He said absolutely no notes, and I completely agree. I do not have a single thing to say bad about this movie. It was absolutely perfect, from the plot, the pacing, the story, and the gore. It is just absolutely fantastic. I think it's my favorite horror movie of the year. It was gonna go to Talk to Me, that I think was my favorite horror movie, but Saw X definitely topped it. It is absolutely, like, I have not a single bad thing to say about it. I left the theater trying to think, like, maybe there was something that I didn't like, and no. Nothing. There's nothing that I did not like about that movie at all. I have nothing bad to say. There is a post-credit scene that absolutely made me yell and scream in the theaters. I was clapping and crying. I was so happy with the outcome of this movie. So Saw X is definitely my favorite horror movie of the year, and I'm putting it on this list, obviously. For the next movie, I was like, how did I not put this on the last year's list? But I realized that it came out after I made it, so I'm putting it on this year's because it was my faves last year, and that is Terrifier 2. If you have seen Terrifier, you know it is a fun ass horror movie. I absolutely love Art the Clown. Love Terrifier since it first came out, and I'm glad that so many more people are like appreciating him now as a horror icon. And Terrifier 2, absolutely batshit crazy. It is so gory, and even though it is like 2.5 hours long, it is such a good time, and I loved the story. Not the ending too much, but the story itself was a really good like plot. And yeah, if you love an absolute fun, gory ass movie, then you will love Terrifier 2. Art the Clown, you will always be famous. I love Art so much. I did the costume with my boyfriend last year, and it was my absolute favorite costume I think we did last year. So okay, next we're going to like a classic. I know I've mentioned other Halloweens in my other list, so I'm gonna mention Halloween 4 because I feel like I rewatch Halloween 4 more than any of the other Halloween movies. I just really love this one. I love Jamie so much, and yeah, I just think that this is my personal favorite Halloween, and whenever I feel like watching a Halloween movie, like Halloween Michael Myers movie, I don't put on the first one, and I just always I'm like, Halloween 4, like it's just a classic go-to. Obviously, if you haven't seen the other ones, I definitely recommend watching like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to like know what's going on, but Halloween 4 is just so good, and I love Jamie in the movies, and I love rewatching this one. It's great. Next is not typically like a normal scary horror movie. It definitely is like has horror elements, but I'm definitely gonna put it on the list because it does take place in October, especially on Halloween, and that is Donnie Darko. This movie means so much to me. It has been one of my favorite movies of all time, not even just horror movies, since I was a little kid. This came out in 2001, and I think that is when I saw it, so I was around like 6 years old, and this is actually the movie that got me obsessed with movies, not just even horror movies, but I became obsessed with movies and cinematography and directors. Like, this is what made me really deeply love movies, so I needed to put it on this list. I feel like when it first came out, many people were like, I don't understand what this movie even means. It's definitely like a thinker for sure, but it is such an amazing movie, and it is just great. Jake Gyllenhaal in this movie is absolutely fantastic. I could go on and on about how good this movie is. It says, after escaping a bizarre accident, a troubled teenager is plagued by visions of a large bunny rabbit that manipulates him into commit a series of crimes. And Frank the Rabbit is just amazing. I did a Frank look for Halloween, I think a couple years ago. Still one of my favorite looks I've ever done. And yes, if you have not seen Donnie Darko, definitely recommend it. It's more of like a psychological horror drama, pretty much. The next movie is The House of the Devil, and this is a movie directed by Ty West, so if you liked X or Pearl, then you will probably like this movie as well. He also directed those movies, and this movie, it takes place in the 80s, and if you would have told me that this movie was shot in the 80s, I would have believed you 100%. Like, you literally cannot tell that this movie was shot in 2009. Like, it is absolutely insane. This is such a beautifully shot movie. It is so good. The storyline is great. It's definitely kind of more of like a slow burn, but the ending is so fantastic. It says in the 80s, a college student takes a strange babysitting job that coincides with a full lunar eclipse. Slowly realizes her client's harboring a terrifying secret. So it's definitely more kind of like those home kind of horror movies. I love a babysitter story. It's great. And yeah, if you liked X and Pearl, I feel like you will also like this movie. Next, as a classic, The Blair Witch Project, the 1999 one. Obviously not the newer ones. I don't like that one. But this is a classic movie. I feel like I hadn't watched it in a really long time since like when I was younger, and when I was younger it definitely was like a scary movie to me, but now it's just kind of like those classic, want to watch it during the Halloween time season, just kind of really get you in the mood. And this is definitely a classic for a reason. It created so much like disturbance in the universe. Like, it really made people think this movie was real. Like, it is insane. Like, the story when this movie came out, it just fascinates me every single time. And I love a found footage movie, and we can all thank Blair Witch Project for that. So Witch Project, definitely a classic, had to put it on this list. Okay, next movie, I just watched this and I can't believe it's taken me this long to watch this movie, but that is The Autopsy of Jane Doe. This came out in 2016. This movie is so freaking good. It is so creepy. Me and my boyfriend watched it the other day, and like we heard like a loud noise right after we finished watching it, and we were like, what was that? This takes place in a morgue, and that's pretty much it. Like, it doesn't go anywhere else. I love a one kind of spot horror movie where everything takes place in one location, and it is super creepy. And I will just say, Jane Doe in this movie, she is absolutely serving. That is the definition of serving while being dead. But yes, this movie is so great, and if you love a creepy morgue kind of location, this is the movie for you. And it has a very interesting twist that I was not expecting, but I love the way that it like closed out the movie. So this movie, I can't believe this movie came out this year. It seems like so long ago already. I feel like I've lived a million lives since this movie came out, but that is Scream 6. And wow, what a year for like franchise movies, I guess, because Saw was so great, and I think that this Saw, like new Saw, was better than the original, and I feel the exact same way almost about Scream 6. The first Scream is absolutely fantastic and will always be the best Scream in my opinion, but Scream 6 is really, really up there. Scream 6 was so good. I remember leaving the theater just feeling so satisfied as a Scream fan, and I just thought it was great. The twist wasn't like very unexpected. I definitely saw it coming, but I love how it played out. I loved seeing Kirby back. I love just everything about the movie. I think, yeah, I gave it 4.5 stars on Letterboxd. I definitely think that that is pretty accurate. It was great. It is a movie that I absolutely love. It's my favorite Nicolas Cage movie, and I hold this movie so near and dear to my heart, and that is Mandy. This movie is absolutely beautiful. It has my favorite Nicolas Cage crying scene of all time. It is great. Mountains, Red and Mandy lead a loving and peaceful existence, but when their pine-scented haven is savagely destroyed, Red is catapulted in a journey filled with a bloody vengeance and laced with fire. It is so beautiful. It is definitely creepy. It is cruel, and I just think that this is one of the most beautifully shot horror movies ever. It is kind of like a slow burn in the beginning, not too long. It does kind of take a minute to pick up, but once it does, I feel like it doesn't even matter because it is so beautiful. Like, the colors in here, the coloring in this movie is the best I think I've ever seen, ever. And yes, it's very, very vengeful, full of revenge. It's a cruel movie, but it is just great. This is another movie that came out this year, and that is Evil Dead Rise. When I first watched it, I was like, okay, it was okay. It's definitely not better than the 2013 version, I will say, but It is a great rewatch. So when I had first seen it, I was like, okay, it was good. I wish it was as gory as the 2013 one. It's really good. I really do like it, and I definitely have just been kind of putting it on as like a background kind of movie recently. And I feel like it works really good as a good rewatch to get me in like a horror movie kind of vibe, you know? And I think it's great. It's definitely gory. I just don't think it's as gory as the 2013 one, but this is a great movie if you haven't seen it. Like I said, it did come out this year, and I think it's definitely worth a watch. Alyssa Sutherland in this movie, she was a great mother. So good. Next is Ouija Origin of Evil, and I swear I always get this movie mixed up with Annabelle Creation, and I think it's because the little girl is the same in both movies. I remember this movie, and this movie is actually really great. I think it's definitely very creepy, very scary, and it's by Mike Flanagan, which if you have seen anything by Mike Flanagan, everything he does is gold in my opinion. Placed in 1965 in LA, a widowed mother and her two daughters add a new stunt to bolster their seance scam business and invite authentic evil into their home. So I love a Ouija story. I will never play with the Ouija board ever, but I love a good movie that involves the Ouija board. Next, going back to some classics again, gotta throw some classics in there, and that is The Craft. These are about some witches, and they're hot-ass witches, and every single time I think of this movie, I think of my mom, because I remember the first time she showed it to me, I would always watch it with her. The school newcomer falls in with a clique of teen witches who wield their powers against all who dare to cross them, be their teachers, rivals, or even their parents. So it's a great witch story. I love some hot witches. Nancy in this movie is obviously a very famous horror icon now, and I love that bitch. She's always crazy and I love her. Okay, another one that I was like, how did I not put this on last year's list, but then I realized it came out after I made it, and that is Smile. This movie actually scared the shit out of me. I was like, oh my god, there's one scene in particular. There is a lot of jump scares in this movie, but I feel like they're very effective jump scares. I feel like when jump scares are done well, they are great. Love the story behind it. It definitely involves a lot of like mental health kind of backgrounds when it comes to this movie, and basically it's after witnessing a bizarre traumatic incident involving a patient, Dr. Rose starts experiencing frightening occurrences that she can't explain. As an overwhelming terror begins taking over her life, Rose must confront her troubling past in order to survive and escape her horrifying new reality. This is like, in my opinion, I don't like It Follows, and I feel like I'm the only person in like the horror community that hates It Follows. This is like what I thought It Follows should be. This is like It Follows but better. In my opinion, I loved this movie so much. It was definitely one of my higher rated horror movies of last year. I think it's very effective and very creepy. X is one of my favorite horror comedy movies, and it's very rare for me to like any type of comedy, to be honest. I'm not a huge comedy person, especially when they're mixed with horror. But this is a great one, and that is Happy Death Day. I love this movie, and I can't believe I hadn't put it on the list before, but it's such a good like comfort kind of horror comedy movie. It is so good and just like a fun watch, and I'm pretty sure everyone has probably heard of this movie by now. Basically, Tree finds herself repeatedly reliving the day of her murder, ultimately realizing that she must identify the killer and the reason for her death before her chances of survival run out. I love seeing her progressing through each day that rehappens over and over again. It's so funny, and I love this. Definitely a horror comfort movie for me for sure. So the next movie is for all my rock girlies out there, and that is Studio 666. Movie stars the Foo Fighters, and when I saw this in theaters, I shit you not, me and my boyfriend were pretty much the only people in there that were under the age of 40, and it was fantastic. This movie is like the most unserious movie you could ever think of, but it is such a fun horror movie, and I love it so much. And I love it even more because this was the last thing that Taylor Hawkins was in, and it still to this day, like Taylor Hawkins passing really like hits me really hard. I feel like he passed away like right after this came out, and it was like right after I had just seen them in concert too. So this movie holds like a very special place in my heart now because I always think of Taylor Hawkins. They're just so fun in this movie. It is absolutely batshit crazy, so stupid. It's definitely one of those movies. It's not like a serious horror movie at all, but if you want a fun horror movie to watch that's just absolutely crazy and stupid and just so unserious, it features the Foo Fighters. What else could you ask for? Like Dave Grohl and Gore. Jenna Ortega is also in this movie as well. I ate that shit up. I love this movie. It came out early last year, and it's such a fun movie now, and it's one of those like comfort stupid horror movies for sure. I don't know how this hasn't been on any of my list. I'm telling you, like sometimes they just like slip my mind. It always works out because now I get to mention it on this list, and that is Final Destination, but in particular Final Destination 3, which is my personal favorite out of all of the movies. That movie is just perfection to me. Final Destination 3 has scarred me in many, many ways that I will never forget. Roller coasters, tanning beds, Home Depot. The list goes on. Also, living legend Jude Harrison, aka Alex Johnson from Instant Star, is in this movie, and it is just perfect. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, horror icon. I love that bitch so much. But all of the Final Destinations for sure, but particularly Final Destination 3. But if you haven't seen the first one for whatever reason, please watch it so you can kind of know like what's going on. But I feel like Final Destination 3 kind of like could be watched on its own, you know? So I'm gonna say the whole franchise, but Final Destination 3 in particular is chef's kiss. All Hallows Eve is a great like anthology movie. If you like anthologies, kind of like VHS, anything like that, you will probably like this movie. And this is where Art the Clown first gets introduced. This movie came out in 2013, and this is, it's not like the best anthology ever, but I love that we get the introduction to Art the Clown, and obviously you've seen what has come from that, Terrifier, Terrifier 2, and now Terrifier 3 coming out. It's like the origin story for that, and the anthology stories in here are actually not too bad, and it's just a good watch to get you in that kind of like spooky season spirit, you know? So if you didn't know, like Damien Leone, who is the director and everything for like Terrifier, All Hallows Eve and everything, not only is he the director, the writer, the producer, like everything, he's also the special effects makeup artist, which that also just holds like a really special place like in my heart for him, because he is like a freaking triple, quadruple threat. Like he does it all, and I think that is so amazing, and I love that so much. So next is the 1986 classic The Fly. I remember seeing this movie for the first time when I was little, and I remember being terrified of flies after it. It's fucking disgusting creepy. It's David Cronenberg. Obviously he's like the master of body horror, and it is just absolutely insane, but I love this movie so much. I showed my boyfriend this movie for the first time last year, and he loves it now too. It is just so good and gross. Ugh, the ending part, like the whole like last act of the movie is so disgusting, and I love it so much. It is so great. Obviously, Jeff Goldblum is in it, so like why wouldn't you want to watch it? If you have never seen The Fly, I definitely recommend it. If you love body horror, gross, disturbing images, you will love this movie. So this movie just came out last week, and I was so pleasantly surprised by it. I feel like I've seen kind of mixed reviews by people either really liking it or thinking it was absolutely boring, but that is No One Will Save You. This is an alien invasion movie, and for me particularly, I don't like alien invasion or alien kind of horror movies at all. That's just like not the genre that I ever lean towards. It's just not my favorite, but I really like this movie, and there is like very, very minimal dialogue in here. It's very much just kind of like under the breath mumbling, so there's not really any dialogue. And I think Caitlin Dever, she is amazing. I think I'm saying her name right. I don't know if that's how you say her last name, but she is amazing. I love her so much in Booksmart, and she's so good in this movie. And again, for barely saying any words at all, she is acting her ass off in this movie. Like, I always think that people that there's no dialogue in movies or anything like that, that is like even harder to act because it's all based on like emotion and everything, and she did so good. Beautifully shot, and the aliens in here don't look fake and like dumb looking, which I feel like a lot of times like in alien movies, like the CGI aliens just look super fake and unrealistic, and I think that they did a really good job with the aliens in here. So if you like alien invasion movies, or even if you don't, I would definitely give this a watch. It's on Hulu right now, and it literally just came out like last week. So the 2004 legendary movie The Grudge. This movie used to scare me so much when I was little, like that noise. I know you know what I'm talking about, the noise that The Grudge makes. I would always hear it like in the back of my mind after watching it. My mom would always like do the noise to like scare me. This is a remake of the Japanese original, but I love the American version, which is not usually the case. I really love Sarah Michelle Gellar in this movie. It is great. It's definitely one of those like comfort movies for me. That's like up there with The Ring. Those two kind of came back to back almost. Like The Ring came out in 2002. This was 2004. Two movies that very much stick out to me from the early 2000s. I think it was so effective, super creepy, and I love the story. that is The Grudge. So if you've never, for whatever reason, seen The Grudge, please give it a watch. But if you have, definitely just rewatch it because it always puts me in like the spooky vibe, you know? Okay, we're moving towards the bottom half of the list now. Another one that I can't believe I haven't put on this list yet, but it's okay because it's here now, and that is Hostel. I will say I really want to put Hostel 2 on this list rather than Hostel, but I feel like you do need to watch the first one to be able to understand the second one, but the second one is the better movie. So not saying that Hostel isn't good, it's just kind of like more slower to get through, I feel like. There is a lot of unnecessary things that happen in the first one that I'm just like, whatever. But Hostel 2 is the better movie for sure in the franchise. I don't really care for Hostel 3, but definitely Hostel 2. It is very much like gory and, you know, what you think of when you think of Hostel. But in order to understand Hostel 2, you need to watch the first one. So I definitely recommend a little Hostel marathon, if you will, for the Halloween season for sure. And I love Eli Roth. So, okay, next movie. I love this movie so much. I'm actually seeing it in theaters next week because A24 is doing their horror movies every Wednesday in the month of October. So I'm really excited, and that is Robert Eggers' The Witch. And I love this movie so much. It's a traditional like folklore kind of witch story, and I think it's so fantastic. I love the ending scene of this movie so much. I literally want that end shot framed in my house. I love like traditional witch stories. I think you will like this. It takes place in the 1630s in New England. Basically, it's a family and the baby goes missing, and that kind of is the start of everything in this movie. If you love A24 horror movies, I feel like you will love this. Okay, next is the 1987 classic Hellraiser. I hadn't seen Hellraiser in a really long time. Like, I remember watching it when I was little because my mom really liked Hellraiser and she showed it to me, but I hadn't really seen it again until recently, and I forgot, obviously I was way younger, but I forgot how good this movie is. I love Hellraiser. Obviously I'm talking about the first one. I have not seen the sequels, and I have not seen like the new one that came out, but the original 1987 one is so great. Definitely like very disturbing. There are like there's body horror in there. It's great. I'm sure most of you guys know like the premise of Hellraiser, but basically an unfaithful wife encounters the zombie of her dead lover while the demonic Cenobites are pursuing him after he escaped their sadistic underworld, basically. So a lot happens. There are like some very gross, disturbing scenes in here, but Hellraiser is definitely a classic and just a really good horror movie in general. Okay, next is a 2022 horror film, and this is Sick. This is a COVID horror movie. I love it. Just something about the post-pandemic horror movies just really do something for me. I mentioned the movie Host in the first 31 Days of Horror movies that I did, and that's a really good COVID horror movie, but this one is as well. Basically, they're in the midst of the pandemic. A college student and her best friend decide to self-quarantine at her family's lake house where they will be alone, or so you think. And I thought this was really good. I gave it 4 to 5 stars. I thought it was a decent horror movie, and it's just right at 83 minutes, so it's straight to the point. I love a short horror movie. Let's bring them back. I love short movies because sometimes I don't have the time to sit down for 2.5 hours. Like, give me an 80-90 minute movie. We're good to go. Okay, and then I obviously have to put the original classic horror movie that I'm sure most of us know and love, and that is The Exorcist. I am so excited for the new Exorcist Believer that comes out next week. I cannot wait. I wanted to put the original on here, especially if you haven't seen it, please watch it, and if you want to watch the new one, you can watch this one to prepare for the new one. So I'm sure most of you guys know what The Exorcist is at this point. Basically, it's a demonic presence that gets stuck in Reagan. And yeah, I remember like when my mom would tell me about the first time she saw this in theaters, she was like, when year did this come out? 73. She was 13, I think, 13 or 14. And she like snuck into the movies and went to go see it. And like, I would always remember that story. And that was like my mom's favorite horror movie. So obviously we have to put it on this list. And yeah, it'll prepare you for the new one if you want to see it. Okay, next is a 2016 horror movie that I honestly, like, I haven't seen in a minute, but I remember when I first saw it in theaters, it was absolutely scary as shit. And that is Lights Out. Becca left home. She thought she left her childhood fears behind. Growing up, she was never really sure of what was and wasn't real when the lights went out, and now her little brother is experiencing the same unexplained, terrifying events that had once tested her sanity and threatened her safety. a frightening entity with a mysterious attachment to their mother, Sophie, has reemerged. So I love mommy trauma because obviously. And I just thought, like, I also was very, very scared of the dark growing up, so I feel like this hits very close to home. And I remember just really liking this movie. It's a good horror movie. It's definitely creepy, definitely gives like creepy vibes, and it's just one of those kind of movies that like you just kind of want to sit down on the couch, grab some popcorn, and just want to be like spooked. It's a good movie to watch with like friends and stuff, so I definitely recommend this movie. Remember how I was saying that like Studio 666 was like just a dumb fun horror movie? That's how I feel about Megan. Megan, she was honestly, I know everyone had like their thoughts about Megan when it was first coming out, the trailer, they're like, this is so stupid, and I will say there are some stupid parts. Chandelier by Sia scene, I'm talking about you. But it's also hilarious and I just loved it. Megan was serving. I'm so sorry. Like, she was serving. I think the casting was great. I loved the little girl in this movie. She was also in The Haunting of Hill House, so I really, really like her. She's also in Doctor Sleep. She's a great actress. Again, it's definitely like, you know what you're getting when you're watching Megan, but it's such a fun horror movie and I could definitely see myself throwing that on just to kind of put on a horror movie in like the background, or just something to watch with like my friends on the couch, have some drinks, have some beers, like whatever, and just have like a good laugh and like a good time, because I think it was still like a fun horror movie and like I knew exactly what I was going into, you know. We're almost at the end. We have two more. Second to last, I have John Carpenter's The Thing. I actually had never seen this movie and I barely watched it last year and it's so good. I mean, obviously I always hear everyone talking about it, but it's such a great movie. Obviously it's John Carpenter, so like duh. And if you've never seen it or never heard anything about it, in the remote Antarctica, a group of American research scientists are disturbed at their base camp by a helicopter shooting at a sled dog. When they take in the dog, it brutally attacks both human beings, canines in the camp, and they discover that the beast can assume the shape of its victim. Resourceful helicopter pilot and the camp doctor lead the camp crew into a desperate, gory battle against the vicious creature before it picks them all off one by one. I can't believe I barely watched it last year, but obviously it's great. Everyone always talks about how good it is. Kurt Russell in this movie is chef's kiss. I love Kurt Russell and he just ate this role up. I love it so much. It's definitely one of those movies I will put on during Halloween time now. It's such just, and it also like, I feel like this is also like a good horror like winter movie as well, because it takes place like in the snow and stuff. So if you've never seen The Thing, I definitely recommend it. And last but not least, we have the movie that I definitely recommend watching on Halloween or on the 1st of October. You know how I was saying earlier, I'm putting the first, the last movie kind of interchangeable, like either watching it on the 1st of October or on Halloween. But this is a great movie for either one of those days, and that is Ginger Snaps. This is a 2000s horror movie, and it is just absolutely fantastic. So good. Definitely like just one of those like perfect horror movies. It involves werewolves, which is not typically my favorite kind of like genre of horror movies, but it is definitely the blueprint. Think of like the werewolf scene from Trick or Treat, and like If Jennifer's Body Had a Baby. That's what I think of when I think of this movie. This place, there's these two sisters, they're both in high school. They're both teenagers, one's 15 and one's 16, and on the night of Ginger's first period, savagely attacked by a wild creature. Ginger's wounds heal like almost immediately, and something is not quite right, and now Bridget must save her sister and save herself. So it is definitely, it's just so good. The story is really good, and I love like the subtle like what they're supposed to be talking about like in this movie, like those subtle hints, and I just think it's so great. And it takes place during the month of October on a full moon, obviously werewolves and stuff, and if you've never seen this movie, I definitely recommend it. Alright guys, we made it to the end. Those are my 31 picks for 31 days of horror. Like I said, I have the list right here. I'll put it on my Halloween Instagram so you guys can have the list if you guys want to screenshot it and save it. Also, we'll link the list from my letterbox down below so you guys can kind of like go through it, log it yourselves if you have a letterbox. And yeah, follow me on Letterboxd if you guys are already, and same on Instagram. Like I said, I did post my first TREENZ look over on Instagram, so I'll link that down below for you guys as well. You know what your guys' favorite movies are when it comes to like watching every Halloween season. If I didn't mention them, leave me a comment down below so I can go watch them myself. Love filming these videos, and obviously it's the best time of year. It's my favorite season. I'm just so happy. I'm like in my element, jumping for joy. I just already automatically feel the spooky vibes vibes in my home. Obviously my house has been decorated for like months already at this point, but it's officially October and I'm so happy. So guys, I hope that this video wasn't too long for you guys, and hopefully I mentioned some movies on here that you guys haven't seen it, and if you do end up watching them, let me know what you guys think in the comments. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe if not subscribed already, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.